Turntable. Hope you're having a great morning this morning. It is Wednesday morning, as always, a coffee kind of morning. Want to continue my series, A Look At. Having a great time doing this. Hopefully, it's going to be a good series. Where I look at a particular band, their history, show some albums that I have of them, and just talk a little bit about the band. And in this case, today, I'm going to do the great Canadian band, the Guess Who. Classic band. I don't have a lot of their albums, but I have quite a few of them. I think I have their most important albums, perhaps. I'm missing a lot of their earlier stuff, but I've got some pretty decent collection of all their hits. So I want to look at that for sure. Before I get started, though, please hit the like and subscribe button below to let me continue on with my Look At series. Also, Albums to Discover series. It's really important to me. Leave great comments. I always try to reply to all these great comments. And you guys are fantastic. I love you all. And thank you. Thank you so much. So, the Guess Who. Canadian rock band from Winnipeg, Manitoba. That's dear to my heart, being a Canadian success story. They're a combination of rock and pop rock and psychedelic rock, and they've had hits between 1968 and 1975, a ton of hits, ton of them, big hits. Originally known as Chad Allen and the Reflections, and then later on Chad Allen and the Expressions, and the Guess Who. I'll explain how that name came about. They didn't choose that name, it was kind of chosen for them, and I'll explain that in just a minute. Way back, basically 1965, or even earlier when they got their start, probably earlier than that. Around 1962, they had a international hit single, which was a cover of "Shakin' All Over," but of course gained notoriety later on in the late 60s and 70s under the leadership of Burton Cummings, the amazing vocalist, unique stylist, keyboardist. Amazing stuff. They've had huge hits, of course, under the co-writing of Burton Cummings and Randy Bachman. Randy Bachman, of course, amazing guitarist in his own right. Went on to form Bachman Turner Overdrive, another hugely successful Canadian band. So the power of those two together, big hits like American Woman, No Time, These Eyes, and a ton of others. They've released 11 studio albums, all of which charted in Canada and the U.S. Their #1 album, American Woman, put them on the charts, really. It was the most commercially successful album by then. They charted 14 top 40 singles in the U.S. and more than 30 in Canada. So North America, they were huge. Unfortunately, in 1975, Burton Cummings decided to end the band. He went on to have a successful solo career. And of course, Bachman went on to form Bachman Turner Overdrive well before Guess Who disbanded. I'll explain that as well. And there's still some form of the Guess Who going on from original band members Jim Cale, bassist, and drummer Gary Peterson. Some people call them the fake Guess Who. I haven't heard them, so I can't judge what they sound like, or what they're just maybe just trying to keep the name going. I don't know. I can't comment too much on that one. But the original, or the origins of Guess Who started way back in 1958. when Winnipeg singer and keyboardist Chad Allen, the original member of the Guess Who, formed a local rock band called Allen and the Silvertones. What an original name. Wasn't the Silvertones the name of almost every band back then? Um, it featured the future guitarist Randy Bachman, Jim Cale on bass, Gary Peterson on drums, Bob Ashley on keyboards, and vocals is Chad Allen. They had to change their name, or they changed their name to Chad Allen and the Reflections. They released their first single, A Tribute to Buddy Holly, on Canadian American Records in 1962, and then released several singles in 63 and 64, which gained some regional notice around Winnipeg, but didn't really do much in the rest of Canada. They changed their name to Chad Allen and the Expressions after they found out there was another band called The Reflections, who had a hit single Just Like Romeo and Juliet, sorry. They released their album Shaken All Over in 1965, and the cover Shaken All Over was the band's first major hit. Hit #1 in Canada, #22 in the States, and #27 in Australia. So even back then they were doing okay. But funny, the American label, or their American label, Quality Records, kind of disguised the single and credited it to a band called Guess Who, and no one knew what that meant. It was a publicity stunt that it was kind of made maybe by a British invasion group working incognito. That's how the name Guess Who came about, from this American label. Even after Quality Records revealed the band, Chad Allen and the Expressions, disc jockeys around North America still refer to them as Guess Who. So forcing the band to accept the name and eventually changing it to the name. And then their second album, Hey Ho, What Do You Want Me to Do? What Do You Do to Me? In 1965. It was credited to Chad Allen and the Expressions with Guess Who with a question mark on it. So even back then they were still kind of known as the Guess Who. Back in 65, keyboardist Bob Ashley left the band. He was just tired of touring at the time. He was replaced by 18-year-old Burton Cummings. That's a life-changing change right there. He was formerly with the Winnipeg group, the Deverons. He also took over lead vocal duties in conjunction with Chad Allen. Chad Allen and him shared vocals. Just a few months after that, Chad Allen left. He returned to college and became a media personality with the CBC. This left Burton Cummings as the sole singer, leader of the band. They were billed solely as the Guess Who with a question mark, and then later dropped the question mark in 1968. The band featured Burton Cummings on vocals and keyboards, Bachman on guitar, Randy Bachman, Jim Cale on bass, and Gary Peterson on drums. That was the classic lineup back in the day. They released the album It's Time in 1966, and it did okay, but it didn't do all that well. In 1967, they were kind of put on the map when they were hired as a house band for the CBC radio show The Swingers, and as the house band for CBC television program Let's Go, which was actually hosted by Chad Allen, the original beginner of the group. This gave the Guess Who great exposure in Canada. and financial stability over the next couple of years. Um, After seeing the Guess Who on Let's Go, record producer and sales executive Jack Richardson um, contacted the band about um, being part of a Coca-Cola ad. This project became a split album titled Wild Pair with the Ottawa band, five-man electrical band, known originally as the Staccatas. Five-man, five-man electrical band, big hit Signs. It's a great band, really, really good. And the album could only be purchased through mail-in order to Coca-Cola. So it's kind of a gimmick, a sales gimmick for sure. Richardson signed the Guess Who to his Nimbus 9 label and financed the album back in '68. They were also signed to RCA. So they transitioned their garage rock roots to more mature pop rock sound and rock sound with some soul and some jazz. And then they came up with the album Wheatfield Soul, released in 1969. Gained some success in Canada and the U.S. These Eyes were the big hits off of that one. Reached top 10 in the States and became a gold record. And Canned Wheat, released in 1969, also featured the great song Laughin' and Undone. I love that album. It's one of my favorite albums. American Woman was next. That just put them over the top. That put them on the map. That gave them the commercial success that they were looking for, and a worldwide hit with the title track American Woman. Their first album to top the Canadian charts, and the first to reach top 10 in the American album charts as well. It made the Guess Who the first Canadian band to achieve a chart-topping single in the U.S. during the Billboard 100 era. Of course, it also featured No Time and Sugar Tonight and New Mother Nature. Great hits as well. So yeah, American Woman was just off the charts, no pun intended. Randy Bachman, at the time of the American Woman album, he had to take a break from touring because of an illness. So they replaced him with American guitarist Bobby Sabalico, filling in temporarily. Randy Bachman quit in 1970. Him and Burton Cummings weren't getting along all that great at the time. And also his conversion to Mormonism didn't sit well with the band either. They wanted to live the rock and roll style. He was straight-laced Mormon person, and it just conflicted with the band. Of course, he went on to form the amazing band Bachman Turner Overdrive, and with two other brothers, and yeah, it's just awesome band. So he did okay. So after his departure from the band, the Guess Who had to replace him with someone. They were actually replacing him with two guitarists, both from Winnipeg, Kirk Winter from the band Brother, and Greg Lusky from the band Wild Rice. Winter Winter brought some songs from his previous band and became almost the primary songwriter at the time. And Lusky and also shared some lead vocals with Burton Cummings. They actually were invited to perform at the White House in 1970 when Richard Nixon was president at the time, but they couldn't play American Woman. It was they felt it had some criticism to the States, so they played, but they couldn't play American Woman. They recorded the album Share the Land, which was released in 1970. Another big hit in the States and Canada. And then they put together a greatest hits album, and another success for the band. They continued to be successful in Canada, but kind of declined in the States for some reason. I think at the time they weren't taken seriously by the rock fans in the States, but again, very successful in Canada. They released a couple of albums, So Long, Bannatyne in mid-71, and Rockin' in 72. Didn't do all that great. More progressive, more experimental sounds. And then after the release of Rockin', Lusky was replaced for unknown reason, I don't know why, by guitarist singer Donnie McDougall, another veteran of the rock scene in Winnipeg. And he also played with Mother Trucker's Yellow Duck. That's a weird name for a song. With McDougall on board, the band recorded the album live at the Paramount in 1972, and that one did okay for sure. Jim Cale in 1972, just a few months after McDougall joined the band, left the band. He replaced with Bill Wallace, who remained with the band for quite a while. And he was also part of the band Brother. So they released an album, Artificial Paradise, in 1973, number 10 in 73 as well, Road Food in 74, and Road Food includes this big single, Clap for the Wolfman, which was a tribute to Wolfman Jack, the huge disc jockey in the States. He also did some vocals on the song itself. But then in 74, for some unknown reason, Winter and McDougall were fired from the band. They were replaced with Dominique Troiano, amazing Canadian guitarist, who was the original member of Bush. The original Bush, not the Gavin. What's his last name? Not the British version of Bush, who had to change the name to Bush X when they came to Canada. This is Bush. There's Dominic there, the back of him, actually right there in the middle. He was also part of the James Gang at some point in time as well. And he was the first member of Guess Who not to be born in Winnipeg. He was actually born in Toronto. They put out a great album called Flavors in 1974, and The Power in the Music in 75. With Troiano's songwriting influences, they became more of a jazz rock band. And then Burton Cummings wasn't very happy with the style of the way the band was going, and he broke up the band in 1975. He left to create a pretty amazing solo career on his own, and he released his first album in 1976. So yeah, that's kind of a brief look at the Guess Who. I could have gone on for a long time about this one. I'll just show you some albums that I have of them. Again, I don't have a lot, but I do have Canned Wheat. Unfortunately, Sue Hansen put a piece of tape on the cover here. I don't know who Sue Hansen is, but shame on you. It's on the RCA label. It's a great album. There's Mr. Bachman there. There's Burton Cummings, Gary Peterson, and Jim Cale. Great album. The fifth studio album released in 1969. Laughin' and Undone were two big hits off of it. They also do a cool original version of No Time, completely different than the radio version. It's really, really good. That song will later appear, the original, sorry, the updated version would appear on the album American Woman. Of course, it's got Burton Cummings on lead vocals, rhythm guitar, keyboards, flute, harmonica, Randy Bachman on lead guitar and backing vocals, Jim Cale on bass and backing vocals, and Gary Peterson on drums and backing vocals. Amazing, amazing stuff. Then you've got the classic American Woman. This is the original Masters version of the album. This put them on the map for sure. The sixth album by the band, released in January of 1970. They'd release another album in that same year, which I'll talk about in just a second. It was also the last to feature Randy Bachman. He left, formed BTO. The rest is history. Hugely successful Canadian band. This one went gold in North America. It features the updated version of No Time, as I said, American Woman, No Sugar Tonight. Huge singles off the album. Peaked at number 9 in the States. The song American Woman will be later covered by Lenny Kravitz. More of an upbeat type of track by him. Still a good song. I like that one. Share the Land. Another great album by the band. This is on the RCA Victor label. Share the Land is the 7th album by the band. This would be the one where he was Randy Bachman was replaced by two guitarists, Kirk Winter and Greg Lusky. Hand Me Down World, Share the Land, and Hang On to Your Life are the big singles off of that one. Great album. Good album. I really like it. Then you have go up to the 13th album, featuring, it's called Flavors, featuring the newest guitarist, Dominique Triano, standing beside Burton Cummings there in the yellow pants. This is on the Numbus 9 label. And again, part of the Canadian band Bush, the original band Bush. More of a jazz rock, jazz fusion band, but really good. Amazing guitarist. And Dancin' Fool, the big single off of that one. Then I have a compilation album, The Way They Were. This is featuring unreleased recordings by the original group. Randy Bachman, Burton Cummings, Jim Cale, and Gary Peterson. That's on the RCA Victor label again. 1976 release. Great album, filled with awesome songs that you don't really know, but so good. And then finally, the best of the Guess Who. If you want to know the Guess Who, this is the one to get, for sure. It's got all their hits on it. Released in 1971. Reached number 12 in the States. You've got These Eyes, Laughin', Undone, No Time, American Woman, of course, No Sugar Tonight, New Mother Nature. Kind of a duo type of song, written half of Burton Cummings, half with Randy Bachman. But they gel. They wrote them separately, but they were in the same tune, which is amazing. Hand Me Down World, Bus Rider, one of my favorite songs. Share the Land, Do You Miss Me, Darling, kind of an unknown song. And Hang On to Your Life, great best of. So there you have it. There's a look at the Guess Who, great Canadian icon. If you don't know the Guess Who, I would suggest this album here, or American Woman. Either one to get into these guys. Most of you guys know the Guess Who, and that's it. And hope you like this series. Having a great time doing it. Love you all. Have a good day. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.